And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 675. And we're back for a weekly FAAB recap. And joining us this week, it's been a while, friend of the show. He's been busy. He's been busy saving lives or doing something in his real job. And then, messing around on the internet and trying to win fantasy baseball league. So he's going to talk about FAAB with us. And more importantly, a lot of playing time stuff as well, since we haven't talked about that in a little while. First, you can find me on Twitter at Pediatric, and this wonderful guest you can find on Twitter at Mike_Kurland. Mike Kurland, how we doing, my friend?
Just trying to save my lineup or save my teams at this point, man. Things were sinking fast. I did have a good week, which helped turn things around. So I'm back. Like for me, middle of the pack is good with how bad I started in some leagues. So I'm inching my way up, and I'm cautiously optimistic. But the king is not back yet. I'm still in the doldrums of the dungeon area and all that. But we're working our way up.
It's like Gladiator. You're about to come out, and are you not entertained? That's what's coming here pretty soon.
Until I get stabbed at the end and die.
I was trying to stay optimistic. Okay, trying to stay optimistic on this one for you.
Optimistic.
It's been a little while, so remind everybody what you got going on. MLBPlayingTime.com, all that good stuff.
That's pretty much it right now. I'm just updating lineups and getting through the season. I'm actually working behind the scenes to learn coding and stuff like I've always talked about. I'm taking a course and everything, so I can really take the site up a notch over the next year or so. So it's more so like a slow play, but yeah, for the most part, it's MLB playing time. I'm updating lineups every couple of days and all that. But the content's taking a big step back, and I told you part of it was the reason why I stopped doing paywalled content, because I don't have time to commit to that. But I'm also I'm taking a step back while working behind the scenes to hopefully take a bigger step forward, get a lot of stuff automated, upgrade the site eventually and all that, just on my own because I enjoy it and still a hobby of mine that I can't get enough of.
Nope, I love it. Everybody check it out, MLBPlayingTime.com, and check him out on Twitter at Mike_Kurland. Let's talk playing time, Mr. Mike Kurland. It's been a lot of injuries lately, but also a lot of guys returning. So there's like positives to some of this as well. But either way, either guys leaving or coming back, playing time will shift. So we'll talk about some of the bigger playing time situations alphabetically by team, because you put together a nice little list here, of course. We'll start with the D-backs because they've got a lot of moving parts here. Corbin Carroll's not going to go on the IL, which looks good. His MRI came back clean on Monday. He's actually on the plane to, I think it's Washington, wherever the team's at. I'm still cautious about this side injury situation because all the news on Sunday did not seem great. So one MRI, let's get him on the plane and go. But Jake McCarthy, Alec Thomas, what are you seeing? There's trade rumors involved. How are you seeing this outfield situation shake out? Because Corbin's playing a little better, I'll give him that much, but still not first round better.
No, and to be honest, I don't tend to trust these things anymore. The way the injuries just pile up, and I understand the fact that he came out of the game, went straight to the training staff. The way I was watching the game and the way they made it sound was like he knew something was wrong. He didn't seem right. So maybe he's just a few days. Maybe it's one of those he sits for. Maybe he pulls an Austin Riley. He's done down with Austin Riley ended up being 11 days or something like that. I'm not saying that Carroll will be 11 days, but at the end of the day, I don't know what to expect with Carroll. But so I had McCarthy on drop lists because I was in a little bit of a roster crunch and I needed some outfield depth. And I decided to keep him because obviously you don't know with the injury with Carroll. But McCarthy's that guy who's been playing well, has been still in bases, kind of looking like McCarthy of old, not really, batting average, still in bases. And there's rumors of the Phillies being interested, which would make a lot of sense because they have David Dahl starting for them. They sent down Johan Rojas. So that tells you right then and there there's an opening. McCarthy can come in day one and be a strong side platoon guy in that lineup. And even if he bats that bottom third of that lineup, McCarthy on that offense seems like a realistic outcome. And it almost makes me worry. He's almost like a pseudo stash guy now. Like if I need stolen bases, I know I can throw him in there. But I know he's kind of in a platoon role with the occasional sits for righty anyway. So McCarthy's a tough guy right now. And with Thomas coming back, Thomas's defense usually carries his playing time. So it turns into a really tough situation. But I think McCarthy ends up getting dealt. And if Carroll can't play, it kind of just opens up spots for all of them.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering how it plays out. It sounds like Carroll's going to be there, but I'm with you on the trade. They can't all coexist, I don't think. So just a matter of time before that happens. And I listened to Paul Sewald's week show on Chris Rose rotation this week, And he says, "Oh yeah, we're all talking about it. If we don't start winning some games, because he's a free agent after the year's on me." And he started naming off a couple other guys. Like we're pretty much all expecting to get traded this year. So there's the players even know the D-backs fire sale could be happening pretty soon, which is something to also keep in mind.
Yeah, and then that turns into which relievers are staying, which like obviously it turns into like Lawler gets full run. We'll finally get Blaze Alexander playing every day. So there's like if you know they're going to become sellers, you get ahead of the market and stash those guys if they're available in your leagues. If you're looking for just some upside plays, and that's where stashing comes into play, and we'll talk about stashing here in a little bit, I'm sure.
Yes, most definitely. We will definitely hit that one up. You mentioned Blaze Alexander here. I thought it is funny that they made a big point that when Geraldo Perdomo came back, it's like, oh, we still like Blaze. We want to see if he can be like a super utility. We're going to play him at third base. And as you've mentioned, they haven't. Jordan Lawler did get a setback. He had a hamstring injury. I have not seen the MRI results that are supposed to take place on Monday as we record, but that might give Blaze a little bit more time. But what's your thoughts on this? Because it feels like I know most of the play already dropped Blaze, but I was kind of like optimistic. Oh, he could be a platoon dude that after a couple trades gets some more playing time, but it's looking pretty bleak right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing like right now, like I've dropped them. I was a Blaze guy, wrote them a couple. I overspent on them, dropped them pretty quickly because I was like, yeah, it's a sunk cost, like whatever, move on. We know the potential's there, and this team has faced like an absurd amount of lefties. I feel like if I look, I bet you that the D-backs have played probably the most lefties in the league. It feels like they always have one. It feels like they have a minimum of 2 a week, and rarely they have the 1 a week, which is like because I have Jock Peterson on a league where he's so good per play appearance. I still hold on to him and stream him when I can in 2 game periods because this team is just that like he's just that good. But they play so many lefties. But yeah, I don't know why. Why did I go on that tangent again? Oh, for Blaze. So yeah, Blaze. Well, Blaze was supposed to get more playing time at third base because Eugenio Suarez is struggling, and he started 1 of the last 4 against righties. So entering Monday, that's the frustrating part with trying to figure that one out.
Yep. So doesn't bode well for Blaze in this situation. Let's go to Atlanta, where they're starting to hit the baseball a little bit. So that's pretty promising. But you saw the lineup that came out on Monday because Michael Harris goes to the IL with his injury that seems to be pretty serious. When you get put on the IL before they even test you, that pretty much tells you what's going on with that hamstring situation. Jared Kelenich's leading off on Monday night. He led off a little over the weekend. Forrest Wall is in the lineup. How do you see this kind of shake it out? Because obviously if you're living on a rock, Acuna's out for the year. It feels like it just without the knowing yet, it seems like Harris is out for a month. That's what it feels like. So what are you seeing with this Atlanta outfield situation?
So it was Ramon Laureano for a few days. I thought it was going to be JP Martinez just because he came in initially, was on the roster already, blah, blah, blah. But then they went to Ramon Laureano instantly and called him up and played him over the weekend. And then today they called up Forrest Walls. They started him over Laureano. So I think, and the one thing the Braves have done is platoon regularly. They have regular lineups. They don't like playing around. So it was either going to be Laureano every single day for the most part, or I think this could be a Walls Laureano platoon moving forward. That's why they made the call up and all whatnot. So I think that's what we're going to see. At the end of the day, neither really piqued my interest. And I think they're going to do what they did the year with Acuna, the first ACL tear, where they just kind of threw depth at it, and it worked between Rosario, Soler. And I think we see them kind of approach it the same way. There's a whole bunch of corner outfielders available in the market. They could be a McCarthy suitor. They could be a fan. I don't think anybody's going to go after Pham, to be honest, but like objectively, Pham makes a lot of sense with his team just as a regular everyday, throw him out there. He can hit the crap out of the ball, could be a really good part of the lineup, etc. So I think you see the Braves get in on those rental types, the guys that are going to be cheaper, easier to acquire. Heck, if they go to the Giants and get like a Yaz, wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if the Giants are going to. I feel like the Giants are never going to trade their guys. They just don't. I think you've talked about that.
They need to.
I think you've talked about that. They just don't.
Yep.
And we do have somebody who asked about Schneemann, our good old friend Dom in the chat asked about Daniel Schneemann of the Guardians. I don't have notes on him, so we could talk about him if you want to real quick.
We'll get to him in a little bit. I think he's being tongue-in-cheek with you on that one.
No, he likes him actually a lot.
Okay, well, we'll put that at the end of the show with the other listener question we have. I'll start that for later. Yeah, no, I'm with you. When Acuna went down before Harris, I'm like, okay, they're going to do it like when they did the Soler, Duvall, Eddie Rosario that one year where they just loaded up. Everyone's talking Lou Bob, which I get, but that's more long term. These guys just want to piece it together because they have all these young guys signed forever. They don't need to be put in a bunch of long term pieces. So you're right. Pham makes way too much. The fact he's not there yet, maybe he's more of a clubhouse issue than anything. But they will be making some moves 100%. So I'm with you on that one. So I wouldn't get too crazy here. If we'll see if it works for Kelenic. We'll see. It's one of those, like, I know you're not a Kelenic guy, and I need to believe before I see type situation there.
Hey, I did go after him in FAAB, but I was nowhere near where he went for my main event. I did get him in an OC for like $5. That's where I was at for reference. Like I was in, but I wasn't paying a premium because I know what Kelenic. I feel like Kelenic's very streaky, and
100%.
So it's one of those things where even leading off, I was like, I'm not gonna pay the premium that he ended up going for, and like my main for reference, he went for a premium.
And he's great for a 12 when he's streaky because like you ride it for $5, drop him, like you can play that game all day long. It's cool.
But
DC.
I couldn't even get him for $5 in my like I got him in one OC for $5, and I feel like he just got priced up in the other one pretty well, like for an OC, because I'm finally learning how OCs work. By the way, never playing them again. They're too much work. They
it's wild. Like I mentioned it. I think it was last week or the week before. Whoever the top guy was in the 3 leagues, I was Elliot Ramos. Like I got him for $9 in one. The other 2 prices. We'll talk Josh Young this week in the 3 leagues I was in. It gets bonkers in that as well.
I tried getting in. I had Josh Young in every OC, every single one, all 3 of mine. Dropped him when the setback happened, knowing I can get him back, but I didn't get back in fast enough, and I missed out on him in every single OC. So I have him still in one main, so I'm still rooting for him, but just a little less than before when I had him almost universally roster across my FAAB leagues.
Understandable.
Screw that guy.
Baltimore Orioles, Colton Cowser. He's been losing playing time, but then every day I look at the box scores and it seems like he's at least hitting home runs of late. So that's a start. But losing playing time there, I can't even finish the sentence the way you wrote it. Cedric Mullins is playing every day. And it's wild because he's actually producing finally, kind of, sort of, maybe. So what are we thinking with this situation? Because I know a good friend of ours, Ben Tidd, finally dropped him. He's been agonizing about him on this show for a few weeks, and then he goes off on the 5-game hitting streak. It looks like a little bit more like Cedric Mullins of old. And there's a lot of tweets out there from different analysts today kind of pumping him up. So what's our thoughts on this Mullins-Cowser outfield situation in Baltimore?
I don't. They've also fitted like over the last 5 righties. Sorry, for the last 4 righties, you've seen Cowser play 3 of 4. That's great, like, obviously as expected. But he's not playing. Obviously, didn't get that 4th game. You have Mullins, who's played, like I said, all 5 of the last 5 games, including against a lefty. You have Stowers getting a start in there, Hayes getting a start in there. These are against righties, by the way. So that's where I'm like, it's getting frustrating because you have like the set core there in Baltimore, and then they turn around sometimes and they do this where they kind of mix and match because they can. Guys get days off, whatever it might be. So Cowser might have just had a day off against a righty, to be honest, and then that's why he only played 3 or 4. But not playing against that lefty kind of tells you something because he's been getting those reps against lefties, and they gave Mullins a chance to kind of keep up with the hot hitting, I guess. And Mullins can get going at the drop of a dime. It's like if you go back to the first half of last year before that, what was the adductor injury? Mm-hmm. It was like a groin. I just remember that he never really returned to form, kind of got back a little bit. And then this year started off slow. It's almost like he's just carried over that slow post-injury. I'm not saying he's still injured, but you know what I mean? Just kind of like that production just carried over. But we also know Mullins can go off at any moment. He was available in a main. He was actually dropped in one of them this week, picked up in one in this week. I liked him. I did have a bid on him, but not so I understood dropping him because my bid was more so, hey, if I don't get this guy or this guy, he was like my 3rd in that waterfall behind Kelenic and FAAB, who got dropped in that league.
Says a lot then, yeah.
So that tells you where I'm at with him. Like, I think he's worth having on your roster as a streaming type. Like, he's in that's where I have him in my brain because he was platooning, and obviously that can switch up. But this team's just so loaded. They're talking about trading him. If he gets traded, does Mullins go to? Like, he's another guy that could go to Atlanta. I don't know if the Orioles would trade to a contender though.
Tough one, yeah.
But at the same time, it's just one of those things where he's gonna probably get traded, and will he play full time where he gets traded? Most likely, but can you wait? It's hard to wait out. It's right now, if you're treating these guys like they're trade candidates, you're treating them like a long-term stash because it's 6 weeks until the deadline. Now they can get traded tomorrow, which we know some early trades will happen, but like we saw with the Padres, they made that big splash trade randomly, like at the beginning of the season, and then whatever. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't know, man. I'm okay. Like, it's one of those things where I get dropping him made sense because especially where he's at right now. But I know I was in a position where I was like, I'll put in for him. I would have liked to try to hold him on the bench if possible, but at the same time, he's been so bad. He's been so bad. So if you can afford to cut him, like, would you rather have him or McCarthy right now? Because I feel like that's kind of the litmus test.
I'd probably rather have Mullins, weirdly enough, and I'm not a big Mullins guy, but I'd probably rather have Mullins.
But you can understand the argument for the other side because McCarthy's giving you batting average, he's giving you stolen bases, but he's playing less right now. Whereas Mullins was starting to trend the wrong way, started playing more. But this last week with this hit streak, he doesn't have a home run or stolen base, so it's not like he's giving you any of that production right now. So maybe he's just getting going. I don't know. We probably talked more about Mullins than anyone cared to hear, but
that's what we do on the show. We go on tangents. That's kind of the beauty of the situation. But let's go on this tangent, and I'll let you have the floor because you've been on it from the get-go. But and Ben Tidd just said I actually kept McCarthy over Mullins on that team where he dropped Mullins. So
there you
go. David Hamilton, Boston Red Sox. Dude's been a beast. 4 more steals on Sunday in the month of June. 9 stolen bases, 2 dongs. Dude's hitting like a madman. He's been worth every penny. I actually got him in another league this past week where you're still sitting around for some reason. Thank you, OCs. Yeah, he's been awesome. You've been on him since day one, pretty much. So what are we seeing with David Hamilton, who is an every day in that Boston Red Sox lineup?
Yeah, that's what it was. I saw the path to playing time that the week he kind of got going was the 14th, and then the FAAB was the 19th. And I was aggressive on him, and I really, and afterwards I was like a little annoyed because I was like in the 30s in one league and then the 20s in the other, and got him in both. But the runner-ups were single digits. So I was like way above market. And thank goodness I can look back and say it was worth it because I've had a couple of those like Brian Ramos where I was in the 30s and I was way overshot that market. And that one, I cut him like 2 weeks later because it was just, empty and injuries and all that. So obviously they're not all hits when you overspend, right? But yeah, it's he's just a guy that it was more so chasing. I needed stolen bases in a bad way. He was playing at least against righties initially. And if you look at the track record, one thing he always did was hit for a decent average and stole a ton of bases. And he wasn't a zero-up power. This wasn't like chasing Ruiz. This wasn't like chasing Victor Scott, where it's like all stolen bases with no pop or very little pop. It was a guy that's like, it felt like almost like the comp that came to mind was Jake McCarthy, like a good Jake McCarthy or a good John Birdie, where these guys weren't just stolen bases. They gave you a little bit of something else everywhere else. And I think, and right now you're getting it from Hamilton. You mentioned 2 home runs. I look at him like Gene Segura type, 10 to 15 if you're lucky type of thing. But like obviously with the stolen base upside, that's far above whatever Segura would give us. I think probably Segura might be a little better, or might have been around 30, but that's not the point. I think Hamilton can realistically. I mean, Hamilton's already at 19 or 18, so 40 stolen bases isn't out of the question. But that's only if the playing time sustains. It doesn't matter if it does or not. You ride this out, and but if you look at some of the stuff in his profile, the things I like about Hamilton include he elevates the ball well. He doesn't hit for power, but he hits a lot of line drives and fly balls. So if you hit a bunch of line drives and you have the plus speed and the plus contact tool, that'll help you outproduce your BABIP. So he's not going to. I think since he's come back up or since he's entered a regular role, his BABIP is like 400. That's not going to sustain. But he's the type of guy that can give you a 350 BABIP. Like he's just that type of hitter, as long as he's hitting the way he's hitting in that approach. But it'll, like I said, he'll run into 10 to 15 home runs probably. The stolen bases are really the money right here. Now he's hitting so well. He's batting second against righties, and he's actually like today he's in the lineup against a lefty. I do think that kind of goes away though. Will your Abreu's do back? Abreu probably goes to the outfield. Rafael to shortstop. Hamilton to second is my read on the situation. Valdez to the bench or back to the minors, and then against righties. I think we can lose. I think he'll lose. Against the lefties. I think Hamilton might lose playing time again because they have like the Rami Gonzalez's of the world, which might not be better than him, but they love to platoon them. But we'll see. Either way, I think there's still a spot there when Brady returns, which is a big question I get from people. And that's why, because I just broke down exactly why. What about Vaughn Grissom? Grissom's been awful.
He's been horrific.
So I'm not really worried about Vaughn Grissom. And if Grissom comes back, they can easily platoon. There you go. So, but either way, Hamilton, I look at him like, he just reminds me of that like McCarthy Birdie type that came up, really took over, helped you in batting average, the counting stats, and stolen bases. Except for he might have a little more pop than those guys, so it's like similar skill sets with a little more power. But I don't want to overemphasize the power because I don't really care if he gets me 10 home runs. It's not enough to make a dent right now. However, just like the skills, I like what I'm seeing all around, and there's a track record in the minors of all this, so maybe he's just finally clicking. Older prospect too.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I was just looking up. Romy Gonzalez got reinstated today from the IL. And on Tuesday, William Abreu is supposed to start 2 rehab starts. If all goes well, he'll be back on Friday. So we should have a pretty good idea, or at least some sort of idea, by next Sunday evening on how things shake out in that scenario. But it's hard to sit Hamilton. The weird thing with like Cade Rafaela, his bat's atrocious right now. And I'm a Rafaela fan. It's atrocious, but his defense is next level good. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how that'll continue to play out as well in the grand scheme of things. So a lot of good options in Boston, and hopefully it doesn't come at the expense of David Hamilton, who's pretty much one of their best offensive players right now. So we'll have to kind of wait and see how that plays out.
And on Friday, if it lines up as it's currently projected, at least the one I'm looking at, Andrew Abbott is who they're facing. So they face a lefty right then and there. So you might actually get an idea of what Hamilton's role is versus lefties. Again, I don't care if he's platooning. I'm keeping him in my lineup for 2 out of 3. Yeah. He's just that good right now, just like Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson plays 2 out of 3. I have him in my lineups because apparently he wants to steal base. Him and Elo are stealing more bases than Thairo Shada.
It's
I don't know. First off, what's going on with that? Why is Thairo not running?
Because the Giants aren't running.
Yeah, you mentioned. I think I heard you mention that, which really pissed me off. Because why? But I also wondered, was it just because I think hasn't Thairo had lingering leg issues and like
he's had a few, but as a whole, the fact the Giants just aren't running is bizarre because they have other guys that can run too, and like, it just doesn't make sense.
It's not like they're producing. I'll say it's not like they're producing runs at a high rate or anything.
It makes no sense. They have tons of guys that can run, and they're not running. It's beyond stupid right now. So just chalk it up to another Giant season that makes you go, Cincinnati Reds, Nick Martini, he's back. Weirdly enough, Jacob Hurtubise sitting back to the bench for now. Doesn't really do much for me, but I don't know. This whole Reds situation, it was fun when the season started. There's a lot of moving parts. Fraley and Friedel are back, and it's just kind of like they're underproducing the expectations I think we all had. And these two names don't do a lot for me. So what do you got on Martini and Hurtubise?
And that's all it is. They kind of like Martini came back up. Hurtubise went back to being more of a he gets in on the occasional righty or plays a little bit versus righties, but sits most of the time. Martini's playing every day. But like you mentioned, Friedel being back in the lineup, that's kind of been the big one. He plays every day. But yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning that people that I've had Hurtubise on he's always on if I need stolen bases, maybe he's there, but he's not playing right now enough to even be that guy where you're streaming stolen bases just because the Reds run a ton. So Martini's that guy. If you're trying to say they have a 6-game week at home, 5 against righties, maybe you're chasing some home runs with him. I feel like that's where he can give you something at least.
Yep, no, I got you there. Let's talk about the Chicago Cubs because this is fun. PCA gets called up a couple weeks ago. Oh, we love his defense. He's going to play every day versus right-handed pitching. Well, you got PCA, Michael Busch, and Mike Tauchman, and we know that when Bellinger's back, so that's why we've grouped these 3 together. Busch has been struggling, but we look at Monday night's lineup, and Tauchman's at DH, Bellinger's in center, Busch is at first. Oh, and PCA's on the bench. So, and I was excited to buy back into PCA for the steals, maybe a little bit of batting average. So I got him cheap a couple weeks ago. He's been on my bench ever since then. We'll be on the chopping block after this week. I don't see much changing in this regard, especially in 12s. But what do you see shaking out in Chicago? Because I love coach speak that doesn't even get a chance to breathe, essentially.
Yeah, that's why it's frustrating. But doesn't PCA also, he's been stealing bases, so it's like he's helping.
That's why I liked him. Like his speed, he could run a little on back of the lineup, gets you back to Morel and company to score runs. Like I could see a 3-category dude in there somewhere.
And that's why I'm like, if you're he's only 15 team relevant, you got to hold on to him there. And again, it's more so you're targeting the
what are your team needs essentially?
You're targeting stolen bases, but Busch I wouldn't bother with unless you really need power and you're because right now it's kind of hard to find things off the wire. The wire isn't doing a whole lot, So I understand holding on to him, and he's played 4 of 5 so against righties. So has Tauchman. PCA only played 3 of 5, but the defense is so elite. And then when he comes in for defensive replacement, does it just turn into maybe get stolen bases that way? I haven't really looked at his game logs because I don't have a whole lot of them, but it's just aggravating because PCA at least has a carrying tool right now, and Busch can get you some power, and right now power is impossible to come by. Yep. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a situation that in 12s I'm avoiding altogether. I can understand dropping any of them or all of them in 12s just because they're platoon bats as it is, let alone part-time, full-time part-timers. It's weird. So I don't know.
Yeah, pretty annoying stuff from the Cubbies, and we're not even Cubby fans because that's a whole nother section of Twitter that's having a lot of fun right now. So if PCA 15 team only is the biggest takeaway here, I'll probably be dropping them in a 12 in the coming weeks. Los Angeles Dodgers, they had a Black Sunday. It was not pretty on Father's Day for them. Mookie Betts hitting the hand, fractured hand, will not require surgery, but the quote is he will miss a good amount of time. Basically, to let the hand heal, it's usually at least 4 to 6 weeks, give or take. Could be longer in his scenario. I've not seen an exact timeline. Miguel Vargas got called up. My immediate reaction, Kurland, is, heck yeah, Miguel Rojas is about to play every day. It's going to be awesome. How do you see things breaking down there in Los Angeles?
Well, they just called up Vargas again right before we started, maybe an hour ago. And I think, but if you look at the lineup tonight, Vargas isn't in. Shocker. So I think Rojas is going to play regularly because they value the defense there at shortstop. We know everyone's like, well, what about Lux? Well, there's a reason why they moved him off that position. I don't think they want to put him back. Lux's arm has a noodle arm. It's not going to do the job. So at the end of the day, I think Miguel Rojas plays most days. You have Chris Taylor mixing in, Enrique Hernandez mixing in. It's a bunch of boring blah. And Vargas, the problem is they seem dedicated to playing Vargas in the outfield. Like Vargas could play second base in theory. We saw him play there before, but it's like since spring training, they just haven't moved him off the outfield. I don't know if he played any infield while he was down for the last week or so, the last couple weeks. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like you kind of just have to adapt to it. And I think right now it looks like it's Miguel Rojas's job, and which sucks because Outman was a guy I was looking at stashing, honestly. But I'm like, they just don't have an outfield. Paz is hitting again, and they should be able to make Outman fit. But I feel like Outman's the type of guy that he's gonna get traded in one of these deals for another outfielder, and that's when the playing time comes, and maybe we can get that second half because he's crushing the ball right now. Outman has like 5 or 6 home runs in the minors, 5 or 6 stolen bases. Like he's doing it all down there in AAA. So maybe he's just building his value, and we see him get dealt, and that's when we see not the breakout. Obviously, we saw Outman break out before, but like the resurgence, the change of atmosphere, the playing time, it'll all be there. If he goes to like the White Sox, it's not a sexy situation, but if he was part of that like a Robert deal, maybe that's what happens, and maybe we see Outman get full run then, because it's not like the White Sox have any reason not to play him full time.
Yep, no, I'm with you, Outman. We saw this last year without when he struggled, but they kept him up, and then he came back and had a big finish to the year. We'll see how this plays out, but I'm just gonna say it, unless they really, 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 really prove me otherwise. Vargas ain't the answer, folks. So save that money this time around because he is in a platoon. Like I know you want to be early just in case, but I'm just.
That's how I have it projected.
It's gonna take a few more injuries to make that one play out.
Yeah, I have it projected with Vargas on the strong side of the platoon again.
Yeah, probably with Biggio. I did want to mention this. It wasn't on the list here, but Yamamoto, he's got a rotator cuff injury, shut down for a couple weeks. Bobby Miller is going to start on Wednesday for those keeping track at home. And the Dodgers are going to go back to a 5-man rotation because injuries have made this happen until Clayton Kershaw comes back. So just adjust accordingly. Nothing really too relevant on the waiver wires to go there, but something to think about. Houston Astros, kind of fun. Victor Caratini was swinging it pretty well while Yainer was hurt, but Yainer's back. Dubon's playing really well. Chas McCormick finally hit a home run. Jake Myers is who we thought he was, and everybody spent FAAB on him. How are we playing out this massive log jam in Houston?
I'm waiting to see what happens when Diaz gets back to catching, because I know he's been DHing because of the finger. I think that's why, because I don't think he's caught. Has he caught the last couple games? I thought he was DHing. I know he DH'd one of the 2 games when he came back, one of the 3 games, whatever it was. So because of that, Caratini has to take away the DH spot. That's one less spot to get Chas McCormick in or Jake Myers. But because Dubon's playing
real quick, Yainer caught on Sunday.
Did he catch on Sunday? They still had Caratini in?
Yep.
At DH?
No, Caratini had Sunday off.
So who played for him? Because it showed Myers and
DH
McCormick.
Was Jordan.
They faced a lefty or righty?
Righty.
Okay.
Jake Myers sat. McCormick played in the outfield. So
it's a frustrating situation because I think that was his one start against a righty in his last 3 or 4. That was part of the thing. I was looking at the split, the playing time splits, and I'm like, even with the injury, it made sense because but Dubon's playing every day, and you have Caratini factoring in more, but that I think that was a short term thing. So I'm wondering, does Chas get more run? Does Myers get more run? Or do they go back to where they used to eat it? Remember how they used to eat into each other beginning of last year before Chas ran away with it? Maybe we're seeing that changing of the guard again. Maybe Chas will get going and can run out and run with the 5 or 6, Myers jumping around. It's one of those things, or they just eventually trade for something because obviously that. But it's funny because the lineup's not really doing bad. The pitching is, but John Singleton, really, we're doing that still.
Yeah,
Mauricio Dubon, you really expecting that to last all year?
He's done it the last few years, though. That's the weird part. Like
he runs hot here.
He's a good utility guy.
Yeah, but you're expecting him to be more than that, and that's where I'm like, I wonder if he can succeed in that. I mean, he's doing well now, so you ride it as well. I get it, but it's one of those things where Chas can return the form at any moment. Myers can get going at any moment because I think Myers. I remember I found a tweet. It was like 2022 where I was like really in on Myers' return from a shoulder injury, and I was just really early. I was like 2 years early is really early. I was like,
early. That's really early.
I did add him and drop him like week 4 or something of the season. And same thing with Joey Ortiz. I think I added him and dropped him in multiple leagues before he took off, because I was hoping that he was getting the playing time. He wasn't, and suddenly it clicked like 2 weeks after I dropped him. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah, that's why I love going back and looking at like guys I was in on last year. Well, guys I was in on last year draft season, and then they sucked, and now watching them go off this year and go, fun stuff. So yeah, I feel you. We'll see how it shakes out in Houston. Regardless, the big dogs are the big dogs, but it does feel like McCormick might start to get healthy and get some of his playing time back, and hopefully get me some money back for all the wasted draft stock I put in on him. Kansas City Royals, Mike Massey hopefully returns pretty soon at second base, because we as fantasy managers that love Mike Massey need him back, let alone the Royals need him back, because this middle infield, Bobby Witt's great. The other half has been a conundrum. So what are we doing with Kansas City? You even have Kyle Isbell down here, which I think he's a much better real life player than fantasy player.
Yeah, and Isbell's another guy that if you just need stolen bases, he'll get them sometimes in chunks here and there, and he's a deeper format guy. But he's been playing every day is kind of the big thing, and sometimes that's all you're looking for is like, hey, who's playing in these deepest of formats? So I just made a note on him because I noticed he's playing lefties again, where before it was like he was platooning initially. And there's times throughout like the early parts of the year when he'd run hot enough where I'm like, he stole 2 bases this week and he'd hit like 280. Oh yeah. But then then you'd pick him up and then he'd go back to being a pumpkin. It was almost like rinse and repeat. You had to just hold it. So Isbell could just be one of those guys where, again, if you're targeting playing time, it's like Michael A. Taylor. You know how Taylor will just kind of get going and randomly playing a lot. Like right now, he's been kind of playing more. I think that's what we're seeing here with Isbell. Is just he's getting through that. He's getting that kind of initial bump here. But Massey, I don't know if you saw it, because I know obviously you have a life during the day. I don't sometimes. But Massey starts his rehab tomorrow.
That's glorious.
I would
have saw that tonight. I have not.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do your obviously the recap pods, your write ups. So I know you catch it. I just figured today I was on my game. Obviously, I had time, and I was like, ooh, because usually I'm the guy that's playing catch up the next day. I go on MLB transactions and I update the rosters from the night before because I'm I don't do this full time, and so try to enjoy my evenings these days.
Here because Massey, I have kept on as many 15s as I can.
I dropped him, but to be fair, I dropped him for Hamilton basically. So
that's fair. That's a valid move. It wasn't like you went to like, oh, let me go pick up
Abraham Toro.
Yeah, there you go. Or like
which I did ride Toro for. Like I did get that hot. I did get some of the bad back end stuff. But I did get the hot stretch from Toro where he hit.
Yeah, but I think we can both agree Toro's good for a streak.
I dropped him.
Massey's like a legit guy.
I like him. Healthy. I do like him. I'm just afraid that back. I mean, the back was the issue beforehand. It popped back up. He got a couple injections. Saw a specialist. Yep. Is it going to be one of those things that just all year long it's going to be like an IL stint?
Very possible.
It's for a couple months IL stint. Which again, who cares if you got him for free or next to nothing off the waiver wire.
Yep.
He's available in, I think, both my mains, or at least one of them. I know that because I didn't pick him up. He was on my waterfall, but I didn't get to him.
That wouldn't surprise me because I wouldn't see many people going for him this week. It's been real quiet on his rehab. It was really, really quiet.
They mentioned the reason why I remember texting somebody like, hey, Massey's gonna start rehab soon, I think, because he started doing baseball activities. I'm like, I'm just not, but I'm like, maybe I'm wrong, I'll let it go. And I didn't add him. And of course, hey, not only is he starting a rehab, he's starting it tomorrow. So he'll be back either by the weekend or the first of next week type of thing, assuming no setbacks because of rehabs. Rehabs I've noticed for guys are like usually 3 days. Give or take 2
to 3 days and they're back. So definitely things go these days. We'll see what the back situation though for Massey. This next one, I just want you to shoot me straight. Is Rhys Hoskins actually going to be a platoon player with Jake freaking Bowers?
I don't know because I was surprised as well. Like it caught my attention. So I initially ignored it. I was like, no. But then I went back and looked. I'm like, Bowers played 2 of 3 righties, and this guy played 2 of 3 righties, and Hoskins has only faced 1 of the last 3. Tonight, again, lineup will come up. I guess the lineup will get dropped eventually, and it's a righty tonight. But even then, at best, it's 2 of the last 4 righties. So I'm wondering because Hoskins will he just get regular days off against righties moving forward, especially when Mitchell returns another lefty bat. That can factor in Yelich getting his DH reps as needed, and then you have guys like I don't know, but first base. Who are they going to put at first base? Oh, Bowers, like you said.
Bowers been with them, which is ridiculous.
But it's weird because this team's kind of finally stopped toying with the lineup, as like how it was like constantly everybody was like 2 out of 3, and now it's kind of like only select few guys. Right now it's like Hoskins' turn. and I don't know why, but it's frustrating. And but at the same time, with how bad first base has become and corner infield has become, you're pretty much starting them regardless.
Yep.
But yeah, right now that's why. So one of those things I want to just keep your eye on it, which is funny because he's actually Hoskins is actually hitting better this year against righties, which isn't saying a whole lot. He's batting not great as a whole, but I don't know. Hoskins is just a guy that keep an eye on the playing time, because if it trends down, if he starts becoming like a 5 out of 7 guy, I wouldn't drop him, but definitely like maybe bench him until he gets going type of thing.
Yep, for sure. I'm with you there. It's a frustrating situation in Milwaukee. A better one though, Philadelphia. Trey Turner's back. He's back, which is great. Johan Rojas got sent back to AAA. There will be moving pieces because like people like Whit Merrifield, you had Mona Sosa, Bryson Stott was platooning at one point. I hate the idea of that even coming back again. So what do you got going on in Philadelphia? There'll be a lot of moving and shaking.
So that's what popped into my head, and I wrote down on the notes here and I looked, and Stott's actually still hitting better against lefties and righties this year, which is weird. He's just not, Stott's not having the best of years. I get that, but at least actually, you know what? I didn't actually look at the whole line. I looked at the splits because I was just trying to get a quick look at the splits. 5 and 18. So he's doing but he's about 234. I knew the batting average was low. So right now, and decent, 34 and 34. So what, times 3 or times 2.5? He'll give you like 88. It's still good. Yeah. Or 75. Either way. It's the power hasn't really been there. I know people kind of hope for that step forward there, but it's more so the batting average. I expect that to be better. That BABIP has to come up. He's got too good of speed, and the plate approach is there, and he's not doing what he normally does against righties while being good enough against lefties. So I think Stott's going to play every day. I think I tentatively projected a platoon just because I think he won't play against every lefty. I think Stott's going to start getting regular rest against lefties type of thing, and then so will Trey Turner. Turner will just get rest in general. But they like Sosa. They have Whit Merrifield. They have options against righties, and they don't have enough guys to platoon. In theory, they're obviously days off and stuff can happen. Maybe they give their Kyle Schwarber types days off against lefties here and there. All that DHing is really taking a toll on them. But you have Brandon Marsh,
all that base stealing, big man's running.
You have Brandon Marsh and David Dahl, and the problem is now with Rojas gone, I would be like, there's your 2 lefties right there. You go ahead and put Sosa and Whit Merrifield in there, but neither one of them play center. So I think Pache already stuck going to center field for Marsh.
That's crazy.
And then, this is where McCarthy might come in, but then that's just another lefty bat. They don't need another lefty. Well, I guess they do if they want to get rid of Dahl, because I don't think that's another thing. Marsh's defense in center isn't as good as the corner. But anyway, so I'm looking at this team. I'm like, no, actually, I still have Stott, and I put Sosa as a part-timer on the bench against lefties. Okay, that's what I have so far, because Stott's been good enough. I don't know if they want to mess with him against lefties, but
they can't sit Stott. That just be they can.
But the thing is, though, is I guess Merrifield can go, because Merrifield's kind of in a weird role initially. Anyway, he's not.
Send Whit away.
I'll say Whit can just kind of sit on the bench. Like, I honestly could just flip those two, put Sosa. I'm just looking at it. Sosa can easily start against lefties. He probably will, honestly. Merrifield's probably the guy who's like intermittent against lefties for that day off type of thing. Merrifield's, I don't know. I just put Merrifield in because left field, because if Stott stays, that's the infield. Sosa doesn't really play the outfield. He's played some left field this year, maybe. I have to look. But I know Sosa's more of an infielder, and that's where the issue became. That's why I favored Whit in the projection, just because Sosa hasn't really. Whit plays a lot more outfield, or has, and that's where the openings are right now between Dahl and he hasn't played the outfield since 20. He played outfield last year, but not a lot.
Yeah, not much. He's getting old.
I'm looking at Sosa. Sorry, Sosa hasn't played the outfield a lot this year. He hasn't played it at all. So that was my issue. So if I keep Stott in the lineup, that gives you Boehm at third base, Harper at first, Turner at short, and Stott at second. There is no spot for Sosa if Sosa's going to play the infield. Yeah. That's why I put Sosa on the bench against lefties. That's why his role gets even further diminished if he's stuck he's already in a platoon as it is at best. And if he's not playing the outfield, I think I read something about them letting him try the outfield. But
it makes sense. Give him a righty they can use, because he's actually a better hit tool than half those guys we've mentioned.
Well, Pache and Pache is only there for the glove and center at that point. If they let Marsh play every day, it wouldn't surprise me, because Pache is awful too. but they've been platooning Marsh most of the year, except for the time where he got hot and they let him play every day. So I don't know. The Phillies are interesting, but it's more so like this, like people like that really got attached to Sosa. I think Sosa's role just took a huge hit. Obviously, Whit is all but nothing, and kind of just keep an eye on that. But I think this team's obviously in the trade market, and lucky for them, the outfield is easy to come by in the trade market for cheap, because I don't know what they really have to give.
Yep, I guess we'll have to see because the returns of those guys aren't great. Their prospects aren't locked and loaded like they once were. There's no Logan O'Hoppe or someone out there to make a lot of noise either. Just real quick, we don't have to talk about it, but Milwaukee, Willson Contreras is out tonight. Hoskins at DH, Bowers at first base, so they're coexisting today with Big William out as he's battling a potential concussion. I haven't heard the exact diagnosis yet, but he was doing testing last night after a collision at the plate to end the game. So something to keep an eye on in that situation.
Would you start Contreras? You have him, no?
Not he's starting. He's starting because most teams I have Contreras, I don't have a backup.
That's true. What am I thinking? Yeah, duh.
Yeah, like I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah,
it's Ben Tidd also said in the chat, no Mitchell though either. So.
I know. Yeah, so Mitchell's on my bench in 9 leagues total between DCs and redraft. I got him early. Like I got him like in OCs. I think I got him for like $1 last week type of thing because he was supposed to be back this week. I still think he will be. It just sucks because I think he'll probably come back tomorrow. But they face a lefty, and I'm not sure he's gonna play against lefties. So I'm okay sitting Mitchell for the first because it's a 4-game period. I was hoping to get him in for that 4 games type of thing. But yeah, either way, yeah, that's the thing. So say you have the option to, say you had 3 catchers, one being I don't know Jeffers on
Ryan
the bench.
Jeffers. If you had Ryan Jeffers sitting on your bench,
would you start him or Contreras?
I'd probably start Jeffers for the first half of the week. Hope you have Contreras for the second half.
I just, weird to be able to make that decision. How often is it you have 3 catchers in a deep
It's very rare to have 3 catchers in a league, and I know most guys would not do that. They drop a guy like Ryan Jeffers, so that makes it really, really interesting.
A lot of people will tell you you're wrong for that, which is probably, I don't know. I had one guy. I know.
I was watching.
Did you read that? Because there was
Well, that's why I made my comment that we're just here to basically make fun of you. Anyways.
Well, then I got one supporter, and it was Phil Deso. So it's like I got one of the best players in the world to back my decision, and then like these other guys who Gills is one of the better players in the world too. And then draft sheet I respect. I don't know how well he plays fantasy baseball. I know he's a great DFS guy. I know he's a good betting, good DFS guy. So I don't know. I've never really looked into his game, but I know I respect him as a player. Which I shouldn't say out loud because God forbid he clips that and holds that against me. Because
I'm gonna message him right after the show. And
so, but in all seriousness, Pete though, he's a good dude. But so I respect those guys. I respect their opinions, and they're both coming at me and making me think twice. And it's good to have that pushback because I made a decision that obviously no one else, but who else was in a position like that to make one? And then Phil came and backed me. He's like, yeah, I'm not holding on to a 3rd catcher because that spot's more valuable to me for other reasons. And he pretty much just fell in line with my thinking. It was just nice to get confirmation from somebody. Not just like it was me against everyone. To get one person on my side was really nice. And it was obviously you never want to be on the other side of Phil in general, but I don't mind. I've gone to toe with Phil. I've lost some, I've won some. It is what it is. But it's just one of those things where when it's you against everybody, like no one's gonna back the guy who dropped I heard on multiple pods the person who dropped Crochet and kept Blackburn. I'm sorry, there's no defending that. We don't want to badmouth the guy who did it because he's doing well in the league, but someone did that in a main event, and
that's pretty wild.
I don't know if you heard that one. So that one, I
did not hear that one. That is wow.
And it wasn't like on accident because it never got reversed, and stuff like that will get reversed the next day or the night of.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's where so like that, like I don't know. Anyway, now I'm just going down a rabbit hole trying.
You're doing a rabbit hole, which you're good at. We've missed this on the show, but the whole I think a bigger comment to the 3 catchers, and that is we get a lot of questions as quote unquote fantasy analysts. Like what's the proper roster construction? What should your bench look like? That every league's different. Like if you went through my rosters, 12s, 15s, you name it. Depending on how I'm doing right now, I might have 5 pitchers and 2 hitters. I might have 5 hitters and 2 pitchers. Like, there's no rhyme or reason right now, just based on what I'm doing. Now, is it the smart move? No, probably not. But it's what I'm doing at this point in time. We're rocking and rolling with it. And that's where, if you can hold 3 catchers, I know we'll talk about it. I picked up Willson Contreras this week in a lot of leagues. So technically, I have 3 catchers on some teams right now. So that is definitely a thing.
That was me with Alvarez, but I got Alvarez back. I have Murphy. Jeffers, if I was ranking him today, rest of season, Jeffers is my 3rd catcher there. That's fine. And I think people underestimate, and I didn't put in the notes, I probably should have. I wanted to double check it, but people don't realize how bad Jeffers has been for like 6 weeks now.
It's been real bad.
He had that 2 home run week that kind of propped it up, but even that 2 home run week was like a Jake Rogers week where it was like 208 with 2 home runs and 3 RBI. That's all it was. And then Kyle, I always call him Kyle Lewis because of my love for him back in 2020. But Royce Lewis, good old Royce. Royce Lewis, since he's returned, we've seen Jeffers play less, and his play appearances the last 2 weeks have gone down because there's less DH bats available now.
Yep. No,
So
that's the thing is the playing time has been a massive, massive downfall.
and now
With
can he
everybody
get
healthy.
hot? Can he get hot? Absolutely. Can he force his way into more at bats? Absolutely. And do I think he will at some point this year? Absolutely. But I wasn't trying to sit here and play this guessing game and play this whole thing while when I need to. And don't get me wrong. Now this is where it looks bad. We'll go later. We'll get into or soon. We'll get into our drops. I dropped him for a very, very like awful player. But then I'm like, that's not fair because if I used him if I used him in my drops for FAM where I got FAM, no one's batting an eye. But that wasn't the name that dropped. That's not the name I used to drop.
That's not how we clip it, Kurland.
No.
That's not where the picture comes from.
No.
You're an idiot. You dropped so and so. You screwed up.
Yeah,
that's what it's. It proofs in the picture, man.
Yeah, the thing is you clip it because I dropped him for who I dropped him for, not the fact that like if I dropped him for FAM, if I dropped him for France, that would have made more sense. Like, okay, cool, you dropped him for somebody.
Look at the big picture. You added 4 players, dropped 4 players. It's not like it's like when we get messages of, hey, I'm gonna trade these 2 guys for these 3 guys, and I always say my first question, who are you dropping?
Yeah,
to make it 3 for 3. That's the actual move. So who are you dropping?
But here's the thing. What happens? Oh, that was weird. Sorry, I had a disconnection. So the clip, what the people are going to see is I dropped, and I'll just say, I think I dropped him for Trevor Rogers. So it looks awful. Yeah. But Trevor Rogers was just, he happened to be the pickup streamer.
Crochet Blackburn thing not look so bad anymore.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. It's okay. Well, apparently Ben says that Dom said it was a mistake, but I don't want again. But if it was a mistake, why wasn't it reversed? Did it not get? How do you not notice that the second it happens, or even the day after when you're saying lineups?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Real quick thing before we got like 4 or 5 more teams to talk about. Just dropping now. Dave Roberts said Mookie Betts is out 6 to 8 weeks.
That's kind of what I expected.
There's about 3 months left in the season, 3.5 months. So that's
you hold them. It's
2/3 of the season.
You hold them. You hold them because Betts can come back. Do you remember the first month of the season? Betts can come back and do that. Do you want down?
I know. I'm saying you hold them as long as you can, but now we're starting to get into the window of if you need roster spots, crunching gets more difficult, which kind of goes contrary to our. He's a stash now, folks, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's just if it wasn't Betts, like anyone else is like a cut right there.
Yep. All right, let's talk about a few more teams here.
I can run through these if you want because we have to get to the FAAB stuff.
Yeah. St. Louis Cardinals, a lot of moving parts there in the outfield, especially like Ciani's playing a ton. Pedro Pages is catching a ton. Willson Contreras is expected back next week. He's starting a rehab assignment on Tuesday. So what do you got on St. Louis?
So that's pretty much it. I've noticed Pages is playing more and playing a lot more, and he's even played more against righties than Herrera lately. I have to double check that. I wrote it down and I was like, I don't believe it, but then
I'll check for you right.
I'm pretty sure I double checked it, and then I never saw Herrera versus righties the last 2 or 3 righties. I saw Pages on all of them, but then you have guys like you have Donovan getting back to a full-time role when he was platooning. You have Ciani playing in and out. You also have other useless, like just guys, just almost like they're just throwing it together and hoping that something works in the meantime. But when Contreras comes back, that's a stable roster piece, middle lineup. He'll catch some days, he'll DH others, and Herrera will play against lefties at the very least. Kind of what the role. Remember, the role was like 2 or 3 games a week before, and then Pages will go back to nothingness.
I'm wondering if Herrera gets sent down because I'm looking at the playing time like you're talking about. Maybe not because Contreras, but if you look at Herrera, he has strictly been DH. He's DH'd his last 3. Then he caught back like a week ago. Has not faced a righty, as you mentioned. And Pages has caught 5 straight games now. So
yeah,
I wonder what happens there when Willson comes back. That'll be very interesting.
And that's something I'm looking to add to the tool I have on the site, which I use it myself for all this stuff. Is it doesn't have the positions listed, and I realized that's kind of like an added little help to like because I have to go to a different site to see where someone's playing, and I'm like that's not. I need to add that to the chart so that way you can see where they're playing every given day because that matters. That helps a lot.
When you get your coding in, you'll have that locked and loaded.
Yeah. Well, Tampa
Bay Rays. We're gonna move on to this one. Johnny DeLuca, who was like a force out of you've been on gift mode with Johnny DeLuca this season. Speaking of Phil DeSoe, you guys have had fun with that. And I've been a DeLuca guy, so I was on Phil's side of this, but I'm not as invested, it sounds like. DeLuca's not playing every day. Like I dropped him in a couple leagues this past week. That's just the reality of the situation. So what's your thoughts on this Johnny DeLuca situation?
Yeah, and he's been, DeLuca's slowed way down. Then now Siri's playing every day. And even like there's like injuries here and there, and DeLuca gets in when there's injuries, but they have Palacios playing most of the time. They have Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau. They have so many parts that DeLuca's kind of been relegated to that 4th outfielder / weak side platoon role, which is what I initially thought he'd have. And then he comes out the gates swinging, got a really good week out of him for those like you guys probably got in on that week when he came up and did well, and you got him for like cheap. So it was kind of like a win-win at that point. But yeah, he's slowed way down. He's droppable in my opinion, at least for now. But yeah, he's just it's just one of those things with the Rays are going to Ray. One injury or one little like 3-game hot streak from DeLuca, he's back to starting for a week.
Yep, that's the frustrating part. You don't have to spend much in FAAB. Like, it's frustrating even being a Josh Lowe manager right now because he sat versus lefties. He's sitting versus lefties. Like, Josh Lowe is platooning right now with Johnny DeLuca. Like, it's just a dynamic that is beyond frustrating. Texas Rangers, Zeke Duran, we've been waiting for him to play all season. Apparently it took a Josh Smith injury for that to happen. Sadly, Josh Young is going to be back shortly. So should we be buying into this Ezekiel Duran playing time?
I would just ride it. Like you mentioned, Smith is kind of dealing with like a very vague injury. But even with Smith and Seager in lineups, Duran was starting to get in there in favor of Travis Jankowski. So there's no real like Zeke can still find his way into regular playing time. No, he can't. You're right, because if Young returns and Smith is okay, Smith goes to the outfield probably.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's a short-term play. I honestly have no shares. I don't know how well he's been doing or if he's been doing well at all. I know he can be streaky at times. Last year he had that month and a half of just like absurd production and then never returned to form. So yeah, But yeah, I think it's more of a short-term thing. Ride it out. Unless Smith is injured, then it can turn into a longer-term thing.
Yeah. For those that are listening live to the show, Eric Haas is on the taxi squad from Milwaukee right now in Anaheim, just in case they need to put Contreras on the IL. So buckle up for that one, folks. That's all I'm going to say. This is one that's not going to end well, but most of people don't have a chance to add another catcher right now, so we're just stuck with the goose egg for the week. Toronto Blue Jays. We joked about this before the show. Somehow Spencer Horwitz has like a 6-game hitting streak. He's sitting versus a righty on Monday night. There's just a lot of moving parts there. Schneider plays well, and it's not like he'll play lefties and righties. It's just like you play 3 games. Now you play 3 games. Now you play 3 games. It's been really annoying. So how should we go about this situation in Toronto?
You kind of just did like you nailed it. Say they have 6 righties in a week. Schneider might face 4 of them. Horwitz will play 5 of them. And that's kind of like Turner will play. Justin Turner will play 4 of them as well. And meanwhile, the lefties like Barger will play 4 for some reason, or like 5, but then come out of one early for like that's just what it's becoming maddening. They're turning into what the Brewers were doing earlier in the year, where the Brewers never really had they had like their core. Like Varsho plays just about every day. Kiermaier gets his righties. Springer plays 5 out of 6 type of thing because he just for health purposes at this point. Plus he sucks. What else? Oh, you have Jansen playing as much as he can handle, pretty much for the most part. So yeah, it's one of those things where this team's just moving parts, and they're probably going to be sellers. So then maybe the moving parts are less. You get Orelvis Martinez coming up to play every day. You have Barger playing full-time against lefties probably. I'm just trying to think of the younger guys. Go look at their minor leaguers. Just know that you're going to see a few of them playing every day. Schneider might get dealt, but if he doesn't get dealt, he'll probably finally get everyday run again because they keep messing with his playing time. So it's really just a pain in the butt to kind of monitor. So it's like right now, I don't know how many righties they face. Actually, right now it's 6 righties this week, according to what I'm looking at for the Blue Jays. So now you're hoping for 5 out of 6 for Horwitz. It's like an awful way to start the week because like you're going to start him most likely because you probably just added them and need the first baseman. But it's not going. It's already going. Like now you have to hope for him to not sit again in the next 2 days because 1 out of 3 is less than ideal.
Very much less than ideal. Last but not least, Washington Nationals, who thought losing Joey Gallo would benefit anybody besides people trying to roster him. But Joey Meneses is playing pretty much every day. He's got first base eligibility, which he's gained recently. Are we back in on Joey, I should say? No.
I had him at one point this year, but it was like a run of lefties. He's okay. He has his moments, which we all know. He's batting 244, 3 home runs. Like, it's like, like the batting average, I feel like is low for him because obviously the last 2 years he's shown really strong averages, but 32 years old. I bet you the bat speed slowed down. If we could have tracked it, I would guess that. But at the end of the day, he's kind of the big gainer. You have what's his face? They call him up every time. Trey, whatever. He's like a weak side. Lipscomb's a weak side platoon guy, so he's getting. I'm surprised that they've given him full-time run almost every time he's come up. So now they want to limit him. Meanwhile, he runs wild. So if he gets that, like, keep your eye on him in deeper formats if you need stolen bases, because the second he gets any type of full run, he's going to be running wild. And he's the type of guy that the week of the All-Star break, if you're desperate for stolen bases, I feel like there's a really good chance he's starting every day for the Nets in the second half. And nothing special, but almost like Jacob Young, where you kind of rode that wave for the 2 weeks where it's going to, like, this guy Lipscomb has that type of stolen base potential. So it's just one of those things where stolen bases are going to be there. Playing time is going to be there for certain teams, and especially this year, I feel like the sellers are going to be big sellers. So like a Zach DeLoach is a super fringe name, but like he's a guy that maybe you get ahead of the market and just stash him. Again, we're talking deepest of leagues here, and maybe not even a good name I just gave, but you get my point. Like, know the teams that are selling. We're getting to that point where you make a list, have it running, and maybe get ahead of the game a few weeks early.
Yep, start getting ahead of the curve.
Stashing is a huge thing this year.
Stashing is huge. We'll get into that when we do our ad drop discussion for who we added and dropped. But let's talk about some of the top ad drops of the week, and we'll go to our NFBC OCs as usual. Got to give a 12-team vibe. Kurland will give his 15-team thoughts as usual, and we'll have some fun with that. He'll give his 12-team thoughts too, as he loves that, it sounds like. Oh, yeah. But the most added player this week, and this is a fun one because I saw some quote-unquote expert analysts critiquing people for spending money on Ryan Stanek. Ryan Stanek was added in 121 leagues, as high as 277, as low as $1. I'm fine critiquing the high price tag, but adding Ryan Stanek, I don't understand. I've been recommending him for like a month and a half because he's getting occasional saves. Now he got 3 saves last week. Andres Munoz is batting a back issue. He's day-to-day. Yeah, he threw on Friday and Saturday, got the loss, and got a hold. So he pitched the 7th or 8th in both of those. He may come back into closing duty soon. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, like I said, Stanek was still getting saves. It's a back issue that never went on the IL. That could easily pop back up. In a world where it's hard to find closers on the waiver wire, I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to add Ryan Stanek this week unless you just completely think he doesn't strike out, guys. I get it. Like he's a soft toss and somehow gets saves guy, but the key word there, he gets saves. So what's your thoughts on Ryan Stanek? Because I thought this was like a no-brainer to me, but watching quote-unquote experts kind of downplay it made me laugh.
Well, it's kind of what I think we all, or most of us, thought like, okay, that's why Brash was such a popular pick, because we thought Brash was going to be doing this. We didn't think Brash would be the guy, just like Stanek's not the guy, but we know Munoz gets the harder lineup. It's just Munoz will come in the 8th to face 1 through 5 hitters, probably usually the 1 through 4. I don't know if he gets the 4, 5, 6 type of thing, but yeah. So if that's the way it lines up, Stanek gets a chance to get the saves, and that's why I don't see. Now I wonder, does Brash, because Brash was so good, and assuming that he would have been just as good, would Brash have just been the 8th inning guy, and Munoz actually benefits more because they have a guy they trust just as much, so they don't need to mess with the roles? That could be the argument. So if anything, not having Brash could have hurt them because now they want to use Munoz as the high leverage guy and not just the saves guy. But regardless, yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, the high bid in mains was 261. Like that was the only one that was triple digits. So somebody really wanted him and needed him. But yeah, it's one of those things where this role doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And I don't follow bullpens like others do, so maybe I'm a little off on it. But I did see, okay, my price range was probably like 40 to 50. That's where he went, at least in mains. And that's kind of on the higher end of where he went. So I wasn't off the market too much, but I know that I didn't go for him. I don't think he was available in my leagues, but I know I didn't go for him because I have 2 good closers right now. But if you need saves, like him and Green were the 2 guys this week. Yep. And even then, I don't know how long. If we don't even know if Green's the guy, it could be your boy Pearson. I don't know if he's your boy, but I just remember you liking him at one point.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother situation which we'll get to. But yeah, there wasn't a lot out there. There hasn't been a lot out there. Period. That's why when I saw the Stanek shade, I was like, what are we doing there? That doesn't make any sense.
I'll tell you right now, it's always been this way. Relief pitching in season, I follow it, but I'm not on top of it, like knowing like. So I usually outsource that to people like, hey, so you follow this more. Who's the next man up here, here, and here? Or who should I be stashing here, here, and here? Like I outsource that because I'm not too proud to admit that that's just my weak spot, my blind spot, because I'm so focused on hitting, and then pitching I'm even behind on, but I usually catch up on. And then relief pitching is the last thing, just because I don't know. I don't have time for it, I guess. So I outsource it.
As Uncle Ted says in the chat, I just looked it up on Twitter. Green was just named the closer by the manager for Toronto.
There you go.
I'll believe that all when I see it. We've seen that how many times, but Chad Green looks to be the first man up there.
To be fair, then they did name Jimmy Garcia the guy, right? Like actually named him that, and they followed through. So you'd like to think, but yeah.
Cade Povich, this one more of a hype pick to me. Again, I could be wrong. 108 leagues, as high as 54, as low as $1. First start rough, second start good. Gets the Yankees this week, which is never a warm and fuzzy feeling. Next week, though, he has a 2-step against Cleveland and Texas if he sticks around on the rotation. Still, that's not a walk in the park either. So, like, I looked at the upcoming schedule. We talked about potential stashes. I mentioned one I made. We'll talk about that. I'd rather do stashing / some other option. Like I was more interested in Kyle Gibson against the Marlins this week for one start than a guy like Cade Povich. So what are your thoughts on Povich, who, like I said, second start was good, but man, these next 3 games, I wouldn't be starting them. It's very difficult.
I think I saw in a tweet, it was a response from Eno talking about the stuff like his fastball just wasn't where he wanted it to be, type of thing. And when I see excuse me, when I see that, it makes me think, second guess it. He had strong numbers at AAA, and Povich he's pitching for one of the best teams in baseball, and the ballpark's helpful. So there's win potential there. I get it, especially now. Who else was injured recently? We just had a pitcher go down, didn't we? Not just Jimmy. Didn't we have someone else go down yesterday or a couple days ago? I don't know. I feel like there's always someone. My point is, there's always an injury.
Yamamoto?
Yeah, there it is. There it is. That's the one. Yeah. So, like, I get it. We're getting now. Here's the thing. People are also people maybe not forgetting, but they're kind of getting ahead of it because there's no guarantees. But Kershaw's on a rehab. Molly will be starting one. Scherzer's returning. I know Scherzer was drafted and held in a lot of places, but in 12s, he might not have been drafted at all. So maybe like in DC in OCs, which is what we're talking about, he could be coming available soon. You have DeGrom entering the picture at some point this year. You have Springs, who's rehabbing, that could be entering the picture. So pitching reinforcements are on the way. I just don't know when, where, how. But it's one of those things where Povich can definitely help right now, though. But I'm with you. Now with all that being said, I understood the interest in the adding. I wasn't getting up to these prices either because it was more so I don't think he's that type of guy in terms of it being like that type of. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think he's gonna be that guy. He's not gonna be a dude. And the schedule scared me off enough to where I'm like, and this team's talking about trading. Maybe Povich is part of the people get dealt, so that opens up maybe. But the problem is if he ends up if Povich is dealt to like a White Sox, I'm just picking a bad team, the Marlins, whatever. There goes that win upside. And part of the reason why you want them is the wins on the good team context, because that team's going to be buying pitching. And if they don't get Povich, or if they don't deal Povich, does Povich have a rotation spot come, the end of July?
Some news just dropped that I was reading on Twitter. Anthony Rizzo's out 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured arm.
Ben Rice?
We could get Ben Rice, but we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that one.
Or do they trade for Josh Bell and let Josh Bell
I would trade for Josh Bell and just drop it into the bleachers and ride all day long personally, but we'll see. That's something to keep an eye on because that was the one where we'll get into FAAB moves, but I was busy Father's Day weekend, so I put my initial bids in on Friday, double-checked them at 4 o'clock on Sunday, took my daughter to go see Inside Out 2, came back out and saw Rizzo was hurt, so that was fun, but being a dad takes priority on that one, and I'll have to figure it out next week. Couple more here. Charlie Blackmon picked up in 106 leagues, as high as 33, as low as $1. Colorado's got all 7 games in Coors. And in the month of June, Blackmon's hitting 333 with a home run and even 2 stolen bases. So that seems pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah, I have him. I've been riding. So I happened to pick him up a couple weeks ago just out of the sheer, like, I need somebody who's hitting the ball and it's leading off, and they have a bunch of righties and I think a home series. I grabbed him in a 15, and he's been the guy that I've been riding ever since, and I'm not going to play. Hey, listen, it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. I'll take it. Like, I picked up Blackmon just to stream him, and it's one of those things where it's a stream that turned into a dream because now it's just working out. Sorry. That was bad.
Well done.
I
was rolling with him earlier in the year. I dropped him when he was struggling. I haven't gotten back on yet,
and I don't, and it's the 7 games at Coors is probably pushing it, and it's going to be 10 total in a row now. But I think they just 3
before this,
So or not, not at 10, So
but it's like you got Bueller, who's been iffy. Bobby Miller comes back. Gavin's done. So it's not murderer's row. Then you got DJ Herz, who everyone loves with the Nats. You got Mitchell Parker and Jake Irvin. That's actually more scary than the Dodgers rotation coming up.
Well, but also people don't realize Blackmon platoons, so he's probably not playing 2 out of 3. So I know for me, I'm actually looking. I have a league. I purposely set it up to where I'm sitting Blackmon for the second half, and I'm actually plugging in what's his face from the Nationals, Eddie Rosario.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it just works out. Between the 2 of them, I'm getting 6 games in Coors this week, or 5.
The other thing that looking ahead, Colorado plays 5 total games next week.
So, he's a drop. I'm not. I don't care.
But I respect this because the high was 33, low was $1. People didn't go crazy. Like that's
33 in OC is a lot for him.
But I get it.
But if you're chasing that batting average and stolen bases and Coors for a week, people probably didn't pay attention. Like, I forgot that he had the 2 lefties on the second half of the week. Luckily, I have a plan for it, but still, it's he's a drop. Like, it's funny because all this, and he's probably a drop for me next week. Even though he's like, it's one of those things like, hey, you did what you did for me. If you keep it up, good kudos to you. It'll be for someone else though.
Willson Contreras, we've hinted at it all show, picked up in 95 leagues, added as high as 204, as low as $1. Starts his rehab assignment, I believe, on Tuesday night. And the Cards are expecting him back hopefully Monday, Tuesday next week, barring any setbacks. So back to the Willson Contreras show as regularly scheduled.
Yeah.
This one's fun, though. Yariel Rodriguez. Added in 94 leagues, as high as $49, as low as $1. Saw a lot of people pretty high on this. And trust me, I was team Yariel Rodriguez in DCs. I had him earlier in the season. It's fun. It's cool. I think the talent's great. They are slow playing the crap out of him, which is frustrating. Like I mentioned it on a recent show. Since he got sent back or he got hurt, and then he went back down to the minors, May 21st was his return to AAA action on his rehab assignment. He's made 5 or 6 outings, 5 of them starts. He's thrown a total of 14 innings in those 6 outings. Does have 23 strikeouts. He also has 10 walks in this stretch. Like, the part I'm concerned about with Rodriguez, as Uncle Ted says, A, he's a whip destroyer. B, it'd be cool if he piggybacked, but they're going to have him start and then get piggybacked. So I don't see the appeal to what he offers to a fantasy roster. You got the floor, Kurland.
Yeah, I think I faded him that one time you were talking. He went.
I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson, and I'm not going. I think the talent is good.
Mm-hmm.
It just needs to get freaking fine tuned.
I think he's the type of guy that you place after a follower, and they keep starting him instead of following him. Like, he's that guy that you pitch for, like, innings 2 through 5 or 3 through 5 or 6, whatever. Because, and if you look, even and like you mentioned, that it was an issue beforehand that he didn't pitch above 4 innings in any outing before the injury either. Mm-hmm. So Rodriguez, what are we really expecting from Yariel Rodriguez is the good question, and I don't know, and I don't want to. I'm not paying a price to find out, because it's, even if it's good, it might be limited, and if he's not getting those core innings where he can get the win, it's a glorified middle reliever because he's pitching all his innings in one day instead of 2.
Yep, it's tricky, very, very tricky. DJ Herz, who we've mentioned a few times, picked up in 89 leagues. You can already tell things are changing because the total pickups per league have already dropped tremendously. Herz, $151 max, $1 min, coming off 6 shutout innings with 13 Ks against the Miami Marlins. Heads into Coors this week, as we mentioned, an end of the week matchup in Colorado. And then next week, DJ Herz goes into San Diego. So 2 road starts here. What's your thoughts on DJ Herz? Because, like, I like the upside. I could see it, but I wasn't, like, overly invested in it either.
I think I'm one of the guys that got him for like $1 or $2. We'll see. I think I put maybe a $3 bid on him, and I got him in 1 OC. And it's just because I'm betting, crazy as it sounds, I'm betting on the Nationals pitching at this point. I've been meaning to look into, did they hire a new coach? Would they change philosophy-wise? They did something, because the pitching suddenly is strong. And like Jake Irvin took a step forward, and obviously Mackenzie Gore. Josiah Gray is on a rehab. How does he come back and take one of these spots away? I don't know, but just something to keep in mind. But Herz has been too good. He's just been, it's one thing, but he's in Coors this week, so I'm not starting him anyway where I got him. It was more so just it was like, that's why I wasn't spending big on him, because I'm in OCs anyway. Because I want to see where it goes, and the strikeout stuff it's the strikeout stuff that's there. It's 35% strikeout rate, sub 10% walk rate, which is weird because he's walked double digit percentages since like 2022 at high A ball. So I don't know how sustainable the walk rate is, sub 10%. But if those walk rate numbers stay low and those strikeout rate numbers stay high, we're talking a 26.7% K minus walk right now for Herz, and that'll play. That'll play. It's ridiculous. Like, his strikeout numbers are there. The underlying metrics are pretty much supporting everything at 2.8 Sierra so far. So yeah, it's that's a 3.77 ERA. If anything, he's actually been unlucky. But with that's through 2 starts, so it's such a small 3 starts, not a very small sample. But at the end of the day, I like what he's showing. I don't know if I believe the walks, but as long as it's working, Herz is a guy that's worth rostering, and just to see where it goes, because again, Washington's seems to be figuring it out with pitching this year, except for Patrick Corbin.
Well, yeah, that's never going to happen. That's just broken. What that comes down to. Well, what's that? Alec Marsh. Excuse me. Alec Marsh picked up in 77 leagues, as high as 49, as low as $1. Coming off 7 strong shutout innings versus the Yankees and 7 Ks. That helped boost this up. Not to mention a 2-step this week at Oakland and against Texas. I'm a Marsh fan. I have him everywhere. He's my most rostered player from DCs and stuff. I still wasn't overly aggressive this week. I like the 2-step. If you can get him affordable, cool. But the next week he faces the Guardians, which is like it's just you don't want to stream against the Guardians because there's no strikeout appeal there. So I like Marsh, but the main appeal is the 2-step.
Oh, absolutely. And in 12s, he's definitely a stream. Like he's one of those stream and either hold on or like I've had him in 15s, and that's why I prefer to have him as a bench streamer type of thing. But in 12s, it's kind of like you get him for the 2-step and he's out of there. And I don't know. I don't see there's not enough upside there for me to be like, oh, I gotta keep him in 12s. It's more of like a hold him, and then you look at the schedule like a month out and see if he's usable for that month or how many times he's usable for that month, and then you decide what you want to do there. Jose Soriano was scratched today, by the way. If you're looking for the please Stack is starting though.
Oh man, stack your brew crew. Spencer Horwitz picked up in 76 leagues, as high as 42, as low as a buck. We already said he wasn't starting on Monday. Dude's hitting 333, but like no homers, no steals. It's a batting average torch trying to score some runs. You have anything else to add on Horwitz?
No, we talked about the maddening situation that is the the what's it called, the Blue Jays.
Chad Green was picked up in 74 leagues, as high as 32 bucks, as low as $1. That could be a nice cheap save situation. Do know that Jordan Romano is working his way back for whatever that's worth for you. And they said the extent of Jimmy's injuries, hopefully not like more than a minute stint. We'll see on that. But Chad Green should get the role for a couple weeks, you'd imagine. So thoughts on that?
No, that's you covered it.
Pretty straightforward. Jared Kelenic picked up in 73 leagues, as high as 107, as low as a buck. Are you in on Jared Kelenic making things happen?
Yeah, I like him, but not for I wasn't paying the premium, so I was kind of like I was willing to pay up a little bit. I think, for instance, in my main, he went for 70 something, and I had a bid of like 30 something as my backup to FAAB if I didn't get FAAB, and I got FAAB, so it didn't matter. But if I didn't get FAAB, I wasn't getting Kelenic, but that's where I was at. So I was kind of like on the higher end. I was on the higher end of like the interested, but like I'm not breaking the bank for this guy just because I'm not getting burned again.
No, that's totally fair. I do have a fun one though. Tyler Soderstrom, first base eligible now early in the year. It's just util. Picked, and if you're in other formats, we've talked about this many times. He's catcher eligible everywhere else, but NFBC just first base. Picked up in 69 leagues, as high as 39, as low as a buck. I know I was very much interested in him because I need help at the corner infield position. And Soderstrom's been on a tear, one might say, since June 6th, about the last 10 days or so. He's hit safely in all but one game, hitting 342 with 4 home runs. And what I like to see, 18.6% K rate. That's a nice improvement for Soderstrom. What are your thoughts on him? Are you in on him, or are you just thinking it's a hot streak and you're moving out? What's your thoughts on Tyler Soderstrom?
I'm in on anyone willing to hit some home runs. I was in on Soderstrom earlier. I dropped him May 26th. So I had him the week before that. And he stopped playing because JD Davis came back. So I swapped him for JD Davis. This has been the carousel that is first base for me in this league, in corner infield in this league. And I dropped JD Davis for Gio Urshela. I dropped Gio Urshela for Ty France, I think. So yeah, but you get my point. So I was just really early on him, unfortunately. But hopefully it'll work out. But at the end of the day, I like him for power. Like, you're chasing power. It reminds me of Shea Langoliers, like just the guy, when he gets hot, he's going to hit a bunch of homers. I think there's a better hit tool there. Agreed. But that's kind of the skill set that comes to mind when I think of him.
100% agree. Pretty much everybody else that was added was streaming, or you got lucky because some guys are still sitting out there in 12s, which we will see many, many times. I will do the usual. Let's have some fun. The biggest price pickups of the week in one league, Edwin Diaz went for $445. I think that's fair, actually. Nico Horner was picked up in 2 leagues, as high as $318, as low as $44. Again, check your wires, folks. Alexis Diaz and Kyle Finnegan were picked up. Ronel Blanco was picked up in 10 leagues. Josh Young was picked up in 13 leagues, as high as $241, as low as $17. How aggressive were you on Josh Young? I know we both talked about the stash, or you went to drop him and someone else picked him up. How aggressive would you have been this week on Josh Young?
I don't know if I would have been in the 200s unless I was bleeding FAAB, like unless I just one of those, like I have 800 left and I had the money. But he's a guy that how much I would have been aggressive enough to hold him for last month if I had the chance. And like I said, I had him, dropped him, didn't get a chance, and I just was late to reacquiring him because the setback wasn't a bad setback. Apparently, it was like, oh, it's actually gonna be like 2 or 3 weeks longer. And by the time I heard that, it was like, I think I already dropped him in all my OCs at that point. I did drop him in main early in the year. Very early, so it's like I can't really regret that there. I still held him in another main. I held him this whole time for reference, so that tells you like I'm pretty high on the guy. If I made a point to hold him for 2.5 months or so, I would have been aggressive though. If he wasn't available in any of mine, I checked, but I would have been aggressive.
Jackson Merrill picked up in 3 leagues as high as 223, as low as 93. Are you buying into Jackson Merrill?
Yeah, he's been really hot lately. Really, he's been hitting swinging the bat really well. It seems like he's tapped into that power. I don't know if it's just a hot streak, but overall, he's still in bases. He's playing every day. No reason not to like him. I like him more in 15s. I mean, the dual eligibility is really nice. Shortstop, middle infield, outfield, whatever. So try eligibility, I guess, in these formats.
Mhm.
I don't think the skill set's flashy enough to be that high in 12s. I don't know if like he's tapping into the power that extreme, but at the end of the day, I do like Merrill. I do like what we're seeing. I think he's going to be a solid producer. So I think he will be somebody you probably keep around for a while, but I don't know if he's worth 200, 100 plus in the OC. That's just my preference, my thinking. But my thinking in OCs has been, again, I've been changing it. And I've been trying it's like I was really aggressive early on, spent a lot more money than I needed to, realizing and now I'm not going to be able to afford some of the big names when they come up, but that's whatever. I just, I realized that those types of bids are reserved for the guys that are potential difference makers. And I just don't think he checks that box. Jackson Merrill.
David Hamilton was still picked up in 39 leagues. It just shows OCs as high as 113, as low as $16. OCs are great. Absolutely amazing. Last one I wanted to mention here, Drew Thorpe was picked up in 46 leagues as high as 87, as low as $1. Got absolutely shellacked in his last start on Sunday. That was brutal. And Thorpe, like, I took all my bids off when I saw that. And then I also saw, there it is. He's scheduled to face Detroit next week, which is fine. Then Atlanta the following week. And he's not even locked into the rotation full on. So how are we feeling on that?
I just wasn't really in on going for anyone on the White Sox. I think that's what it was. Again, in my head, I'm looking at it like he's interesting. I like him. I think Thorpe will be solid, but we're seeing how hard it is to come by with wins on that team.
Nope.
Excuse me. And that team's getting worse. It's about to get worse.
Yes, a lot worse.
So even if he goes down, I don't think he's down long. It's one of those, like, he goes down. Does he get? Is he as bad as Max Meyer, where he never comes back up? No, I think he would come back up after that trade deadline. But with that said, even then, I don't think in 12s. I don't view him more than a streamer right now. At least the rest of this year, until they do something. Like, he would have to be Garrett Crochet type for me to be like, ooh, I'm excited. And even Eric Fede, who's been solid, I've looked at Fede and I'm like, he's barely somebody I want to like make a point to get if he's on the waiver wire in 12s, just because for what? Like, the Ks might not be, like, the Ks aren't going to be a strength. The ratios might be okay or solid, but no wins. And I'm like, I can stream Simeon Woods Richardson or other, these are guys I just picked up this week. And other guy, there's always solid. There's Kyle Gibson. Like, there's always a solid guy I can stream for a week or two with better matchups. And I don't know if I know Thorpe can be better than that, but in a 12, I don't think it's difference making enough to go out and spend that type of money on him.
100% agree. That's where I stood on it when I saw that Sunday start. Really made me check myself on that one in a big way. And I looked at the schedule and said, nah, we're just going to sit back and watch this one take place. All right, let's recap some FAAB. Mr. Kurland, I'll let you start with your 15s, then I'll do my 15s, then we'll go 12. So what do you got for FAAB this past week?
So in one main, I tried to keep it cheap, and I ended up getting uncontested in 2/3 of my bids, which of course that would happen when I'm trying to keep it cheap. But Ty France 17-2, I was surprised because I thought 17 was more of like a not keep him honest, because I actually wanted France for my CI, but I didn't want to. I don't want to spend big on him, so I was 17 because the other main I got him as well. For more, it cost me more, and the runner up was higher than my winning bid here. So. But yeah, Trevor Rogers dropped Austin Hayes. I told you Ty France for Gio Urshela. I did that twice. So, I actually picked up Louis Varland for $5 just because I was like, because he was having a decent little outing on Sunday, and he had that outing, and he's had really good matchups since he's come back up. And I know he was in a relief role, but I don't know. It's one of those, like, it's more of a gut feel. There's really no other thing than I'm going to take a shot. So I put $5 on him. I probably should have done 2 or 3, but I did 5 just to play it safe and uncontested. Trevor Rogers, I have in both leagues now. Uncontested, just on like a 4-game hot streak, and matchup against Seattle was the only reason why there. And then Ty France again was just the product of the fact that he was dropped, and now he's gonna be back. And I don't think he's gonna be anything special, but I think we saw him getting hot. Hopefully he can carry that over. I'm looking for playing time and at bats, and he kind of checks those boxes. The other main, Tommy Pham for 89, runner up of 78. So I was really happy with that bid. I actually had a bid of 79 about an hour before FAAB ran, and I upped it $10 just to play, just cause. So obviously it would have been great to get that 79 to 78 bid, but I'm not mad. $11, whatever. France, I told you I was really first base needy here. $39, got aggressive, but runner up was 24. So it wasn't even that bad again. But goes back to the other main where 17-2. These are 15s. That type of variance isn't as common. So what else? Oh, Justin Henry Malloy was still available here. Dropped Wilmer Flores for him, and then Trevor Rogers 5-2. Dropped Jeffers. So I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say is I dropped Jeffers for FAAB. And I dropped Toro. I dropped Toro for Rogers. And yeah, it goes to show you that. Okay, so I mentioned who I added. I dropped Abraham Toro, Gio Urshela, Wilmer Flores, and Ryan Jeffers, obviously. But Jeffers was my third catcher.
That's a lot of corner infield right there.
But that goes to show you how bad this team was. Like, it's been struggling. Like, I'm rostering and I was playing these guys almost regularly. Toro, Urshela, and Flores. And this is like after Flores' hot run. I picked him up the week after. Cheap, but picked him up the week after. So I'm like, all right, so FAAB was a huge get. France was a big upgrade in theory. Justin Henry Malloy, upside play. You know, it's just like I'm chasing the power there. The batting average in this league's kind of sank. So it's like you can see where my brain's at with these. I'm like, I kind of made big moves because this offense has been struggling. And I'm like, oh, I have an OLAC right somewhere.
Real quick, Ben Ted said, no, you dropped Jeffers for Rogers. That's just the way it's going to go.
I know. Well, that's the truth. I did, but I should have. I honestly, I thought about it afterwards. I'm like, man, I should have gone back because now when I already text Waxman when he does his little write up, I'm going to be highlighted for the one because I'm the one guy who dropped him in the whole main event.
Yep.
And
so but you always do like to stand out, Kurland. We know that. So
yeah, but not for the wrong reasons. And my OLAC, just a bunch of I dropped Kyle Bradish, I dropped CES where I grabbed him for like $1 or $2 the week before. Yep. I got Schwellenbach, Tobias Myers, Lenine Sosa for $1, and Michael Waka for $5 unopposed, just because he's on a rehab and he'll shoot back and pitching in 15s are rough. Those are my three 15s. So did you want to go through yours? Or
yeah, I'll go through mine. I'm just real curious. You dropped Bradish. You think it's a long-term thing?
He went on the IL instantly. It's his elbow. He already had the UCL strain. I dropped him everywhere. I dropped him in all my OCs. I dropped him everywhere. I didn't even think twice. I'll probably drop him this week. I guess I wanted to see more info. I just assumed the worst because he already had a bad elbow, and then I have elbow pain and IL the next moment. That's all I had to see. I was like, yeah, didn't even think twice. Gone.
Sense. Okay, in my 15s, my OLAC. Actually, I got outbid on. I didn't get anything. My OLAC. I'm shocked. I must have got outbid on everything in that one. That's awesome. Didn't have a whole lot of moves to take place in that one to begin with. Bubba and the Bloom auction leagues. I know I didn't make any league moves in the one I'm in League One because nothing. But League Two, I went crazy here because I had a lot of money to spend, and I'm in first place and 4th overall. So we're gonna add some bullets to this train. I added Eloy Jimenez, dropped Luke Raley, who's basically platooning now. Added Spencer Arrighetti, dropped Austin Gomber. I'll take my chances there. Added Tyler Soderstrom, dropped Jeremiah Estrada. But I went heavy here, like Eloy for 33, no runner-up. Arrighetti 33-2, and Soderstrom 32-0. Because I have like $700 in that league. I'm like, I'm getting these guys, and I'm walking away from the table. That's pretty much where I went on that one. Like Yariel Rodriguez went for $39 with a runner-up at 35. I'll take my chances on Arrighetti for 33. All things considered. Yeah. I will say Ryan Jeffers was added for $37 and Henry Davis was dropped for $31 runner-up bid in that league.
I expect Jeffers to go for more than that in the main because of all the catcher injuries. And then someone dropped Real Muto in that main event too, surprisingly enough.
And then in my main event queue where I needed I had some money to spend. I had a lot more money than in most of my leagues than most people. So I got Soderstrom in that one, dropped Luke Raley 44-8. Like it was certain leagues like I have to get these players. I can't play around type scenario. So I knew I was bidding higher, but I'm like, I'm getting them and I'm walking away from the table. Call that what you wish, but that's what I did. 12 teams. What do you got?
So in an OC where I have Neto and Wynn on my bench. I have Trey Turner who returned and David Hamilton. So I decided to drop Thairo Estrada actually for Ty France, which is weird because it's a weird drop.
OC though, I really can.
I did get Willson Contreras 34-32, which was nice. Yeah. And but this is also a league where I'm 4th in the league. And I have Francisco Alvarez and JT Realmuto. So it's like this is a league where I'll keep all 3 catchers. But those are like the high-end guys, and I don't know. Maybe I'll drop Alvarez at one point. It depends if like down the stretch. But right now I'll keep them all. Soderstrom, Josh Bell just made that swap 4-1. 2-1 Charlie Blackmon for Jake Myers. I don't know why I still have Jake Myers. It's almost like he got lost. Like I forgot I even had Myers on this team. Mm-hmm. I think that happened across my OCs. I think I had Myers on most of my OCs. And then I got Tyler Anderson for $1, dropped Kyle Bradish. Told you I dropped them everywhere. I wasn't kidding.
No, that's a good call. I need to go back and do that this weekend, most likely.
The next league, everything was every bid was like $3 or less because I'm just trying to keep it really cheap. Got Jock Peterson, dropped Dylan Moore 3-2. Got Lars Newbar for the stash, dropped Wilmer Flores. I had Wilmer Flores everywhere apparently. I grabbed Garrett Mitchell for $3. No runner up for Lars either. Tobias Myers dropped Bradish 3-0, and Charlie Blackmon 2-0 dropped Justin Turner. I realized I set myself up with really like a depth. I forgot where I messed up my depth, but either way, I have a bunch of outfield. and then my last OC, and that's my worst OC. That OC is that's the one with Acuna, Willson Contreras. I was looking at it today. Like half of the first round picks were either half of my first 10 or 11 picks were busts or injured or both. I got Ty France. I got a lot of Ty France. I got France, dropped LeMahieu 7-0. This is my Kelnick for drop Jake Myers again, 5-0. Dropped Wilmer Flores for Montway Jr. stash, 4-0. And SWR, so I'm assuming it was Richardson 3-0, dropped Paul DeYoung. Don't know why I dropped DeYoung. I think it's another league where I just have too much middle infield. So I went for but yeah, this is so I added a bunch of Ty. I didn't realize that I'm suddenly a Ty France. I had 0 Ty France entering the year, by the way. Absolutely, I had 0. I had 0. I'm looking. I have to see. I think I have on every FAAB league now. Now I have to root for the guy. I faded him on purpose.
That'll be fun.
No, I have 4 out of 5 FAAB leagues. I mean, my OLAC, I didn't get them, so 4 out of 6, but still, like that's a lot.
Well, my OC is my first OC, and we'll keep track at home, folks. Josh Young went in this OC for 101, and Josh Bell got dropped, and I need a first baseman, so that's going to be a target of mine coming up. But my ad this week, Eloy Jimenez dropped Wilmer Flores 6-0. Added Captain Jack, dropped Jose Miranda 3-0. Miranda, he's hitting well, but the playing time's so inconsistent that it's not what I need, and I don't need a third
maddening.
And I don't need a third baseman, so it's kind of what that came down to. In OC2, this is where things got fun for me, at least. I got Wilyer Abreu, drop Michael Conforto. This is where OCs really want you to throw things through a wall. 44-0 for Wilyer Abreu, who's coming off the IL, was playing phenomenal baseball this season. I was baffled by that. Spencer Arrighetti dropped Ben Lively 22-2, and I saw Lively picked up in 5 leagues. The reason I dropped him in 12, and he went for as high as 111. The reason I dropped him in 12 is A, this league I have pitching is really strong. B, he's like dead. Like there's no strikeouts. You get some wins and an occasional ratio. Schedule upcoming's not good. So he's a streamer to me in 12s. And then I added Mitch Garver and dropped Corey Lee 12-1. And then I stashed Gavin Williams and dropped Trevor Larnach 3-0. So there's a Gavin Williams stash for me. And then in OC3, I got David Hamilton, dropped Luke Rayleigh 44-1. Thanks for the runner-up bid, folks. But then I mentioned the Josh Young bid in the first OC. I got him in this OC, dropped Adam Duvall 33-3. The runner-up bid was $3. Josh Young went for 120-something in the first league. It's beyond crazy. And, it's very, very, very frustrating. So we'll see how all that plays out. But those are my 3 OCs for you. Mr. Kurland, last but not least, you mentioned Stash. What is your thoughts on Stash?
Well, now that the podcast ran late, because we always run late, just this year, it's one of those things that it's needed more now than ever, man. It's I've been stashing since day one. At one point, I was stashing, I think, 5 players in a week. Like that's wild, especially in FBC formats where there are no IL stashes. So it's like I was stashing 5 and kind of playing with 2-man benches, and it's been the go-to move. And I think it's like I'm not that extreme now. I think 2 or 3 is my max. But it's because the waiver wires are so bare because of all the injuries this year and the underperformers that now it's almost like, you're almost better off holding on to some of these guys and hoping they work out. Like if TJ Friedl worked out for me, but like I know there's been like busts that haven't. like I don't know. It's one of those things where like if Jung doesn't work out, it wasn't worth it. But I'm almost willing to take that shot and work around holding on to him because the potential for he's an everyday player. And there aren't the call-ups, like the rookies that are called up haven't been doing anything. Manzardo and others, just there hasn't been a whole lot of production from the minors. The free agency's bare. I don't know. I'm finding that stashing has been more advantageous than ever to stash. And last year I was pretty open to stashing, but not stashing when I let go of Morel 2 weeks early. That cost me. That was huge. And I think maybe am I overcorrecting? Maybe that's where my head's at right now. I think there's a happy medium, but I realize stashing for me has been the way to go because Tommy Pham happened to get dropped, but he's not dropped every week. So if it wasn't for him, I'd still be starting part-timers this week. And Ty France got dropped, but the injury wasn't so bad. Got him, but assuming that he's actually healthy, and if he's, I don't know if he'll be any good, he gets stuck again. But so like those are rare occurrences. Those might have helped save my season a little bit, but because those weren't happening so often, I'm over here stashing anyone who has a pulse I think will play full time and be at least helpful, if not a slight difference maker in a spot that I don't think I can make up off of the waiver wire. So I don't know. That's where my head's at with stashing and pitching. The same. Pitching there, I haven't stashed as much because I've just been streaming off the bench. But yeah, it's more so the hitters. The hitters this year for me, I've been stashing a lot of them.
Yep, no, I'm with you on the stash. It's been a lot of stashing for me. Like I stashed Bradish for a while. That worked out well. Now it's time to move on. Like I said, I Gavin Williams for $3. I'll give it a shot. Josh Young, Willson Contreras. Like there's a bunch of guys that I'd take the full-time upside plays than these rookies that are getting called up that are expensive and not doing much. So I'll take my chances for the cheap in this regards. As Ben Ted says, this year I was 100% stashing during the draft, but once the season started, that's when I started. I found that to work pretty well so far. So, yep, it's been a good go up till now.
I stashed a bunch of JD Martinez. I stashed a few. I stashed Lars. I'm stashing him again. I'm holding him where I had him. I held on to TJ Friedel. So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, and the problem is my guys I had in the meantime weren't producing, so I have had to play catch up in offense, and it hasn't been easy. I have one main really showing promise, and they both, I've got up to 7th place in both of them. So, so far so good there. But at the end of the day, it's definitely frustrating because it's one thing if you're stashing and your team's good, but when you're stashing and your team's bad, you start questioning like, why am I doing this? But at the same time, what else? Obviously, the waiver wire is not helping you anyway, because it's not like I'm stashing and don't have turnover. I have guys I'm just flipping through every week, and I'm trying to add off the waiver wire, and those stashes weren't getting in the way. So my team was just bad team build or just slow starts. Because last year if I learned anything last year, the season's long, and so like I realized like in a month from now I can be creeping up towards top 3 in these leagues, and so it's just a matter of being consistent. And I realized I can stream and work around stashing multiple guys. And although it's not ideal, because an ideal situation would be my team's healthy and performing, but I think it's my best way to catch up with this year in particular.
Yep, most definitely. All right, let's do. Yeah, and that's kind of you. Basically, your last sentence there is exactly the reason I've been doing it. I think it's the best way to catch up right now than trying to play this mindless game with children, aka the rookies getting called up, not the players we're playing against. But all right, we have 2 listener questions. Let's get to these real quick. Our buddy Dom in the chat, bullpen guru, Daniel Sheenan, discuss. Sheenman's been interesting. I've never bought into it, but I know like Uncle Ted's in the chat talking about him a lot. There's some smart people that do like Daniel Sheenman of the Cleveland Guardians. I was just thinking he wouldn't get enough playing time. It's still been kind of intermittent, but when he plays, hitting 372 with a home run. So what are your thoughts on Sheenman right now?
So he is a lefty. He can play shortstop. And I know
he's played second, shortstop, outfield, and third base this year.
Yeah. I know Rocchio can also play every day and be good enough to play. But it's one of those things where I'm wondering, because first off, Schneeman's just been kind of, like you said, he's been the super util. Now he's running pure 533 BABIP, 27.6% strikeout rate. He always strikes out a lot. Yes, there's power in that profile, but how much of that is just him being 27 in the minors this year? Because the ISO has never really been high. So it's like he hit a home run already. I think he ends up platooning sooner than later too. And I think the playing time came when like you had J-Ram. You know how this team can be. J-Ram was on paternity leave, so he played third base last 2 games. But Schneeman will play, I think, against righties, and it'll be on him. When like, him slowing down will be what causes him to lose playing time. But at the end of the day, I'm not a huge fan of him. Because Dom liked him, and I was like, I get it. I see the appeal. I just, at the same time, I also was like, it's just one of those things. Like, he's a 27-year-old minor leaguer that got his first taste of the majors now. Like, can he go on a David Fry-esque type of run? Maybe. That ballpark's playing really well to power. So I don't know. I just think I get it. For streaming, if you're streaming MI and you need power, I think there's an upside play there, but 15 teamers only. And but it just wasn't for me. But to be fair, I was like, hey man, I'm also pretty biased. Like I don't need MI right now. So I think, but if you need it, I think he's a great target just to take a shot for upside, especially because he was cheap, like $1 or $2 every week. that he's been.
I'm waiting for it to come crashing to an end though. So just be prepared for the other side of the. I could be wrong.
That's what I'm saying. I'm that's where I'm leaning, but the BABIP, because I'm just looking at his minor league BABIPs, and he ran a 364 BABIP in the minors this year, and obviously 533 is not going to sustain. But what if he's a 321 BABIP in 2023 and Schneemann still hit 267? That's realistic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there's more there than I gave credit for. Honestly, I think there might be a little more credit. And it's one of those things where the strikeout rate's high, but if you look, it's not due to swinging. There's probably some swing and miss, but swing and strike rates are all like 12%, 11%. So it's not a whole lot of swing and miss. And the contact rates right now are great, but he doesn't chase either. So that it's more of a passivity than it is a swing and miss thing, which is I prefer. I always talk about this on your show or in general that if a player is going to have a high strikeout rate, I prefer it to be due to a passive approach, not due to versus swing and miss. So I don't know. There's some interest there. Maybe I had a blind spot to him because I just wasn't really that interested considering 27-year-old minor leaguer just getting his first shot, and the playing time is probably going to be like you said. I think at best it's going to be strong side. I project him as a strong side platoon bat for now, but we'll see.
All right, Stephen Crawford's got a two-parter here. Worry meter on Jared Jones on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 not worried, 10 being a drop.
Oh, I don't know. I know he's had a couple rough outings, but it's weird because it's like I think the bad ones have been really bad for Jones is kind of the thing.
Yeah, they've been blow-ups.
Yeah, like a 6 earned run outing and a 5 earned run outing in his last 4 outings. But sandwiched between those 4 and 6, the 5 and 6 is a 2 and a 0. So, and then before that, obviously the big run. So I'm at a 1, maybe a 2 if you're really concerned that suddenly he's getting figured out. But it's been one of those, and one of them was at Coors. The other one was at Detroit, so that one's the weird one.
Well, Detroit's pesky versus right-handed pitching. Like it's not a walk in the park.
I mean, he did 6 shutout against the Dodgers, 5 shutout against the Twins. Or sorry,
he's
2.
a young pitcher that throws a lot of fastballs, and if his fastball's not dominant, they're gonna hit him, and that's just the reality of baseball.
And Colorado's Colorado. Like, I know they haven't been the same, but no one's immune to Colorado in Coors. It's so I'm not. Now the walks are concerned. Like if there's a walks, he's walked 3 or more in 4 of his last 5 starts.
That's why I was gonna say I'm like 3.5 on this list. I'm not like lock it in, but there are signs of a young pitcher that there's the roller coaster of a young arm type thing.
Yeah, so I'd give it a 2 because of the walks, but everything else is so good that it's like that's it. Like a 2 is like you said, 3.5 is still like that's the high. I'd say you're the high end. Like, there's no reason.
Yeah. Well, then how about this? In a 10-team league, would you rather have Jared Jones, Stash Blake Snell, Taj Bradley, or Hunter Brown?
I'd still probably hold on to Jones of those names.
Hunter Brown's. I take Hunter.
I would say Hunter Brown's been really good though. I know he's kind of figuring it out. So but that's where you're streaming these guys. Like all those guys are like you're picking them up. That's why I don't play those leagues anymore. I can't. I get anxiety. Playing 12s. Yeah. I get anxiety because I see value in like Schneemann. I see the value, but I would never roster him in a 12. I can't roster him in a 12. But in a 15, he's justifiably rostered probably in most mains right now, or at least half of them. I have to look, but it's like that's why I prefer deeper formats. That's my preference. That's why I cater to them because I enjoy trying to find the diamonds in the rough.
He says the diamonds in the rough, but in reality, Kurland sees shiny object and gets excited. So there's more shiny objects in the shallow leagues, and he just can't hone it back in.
No, I want to hoard them all, but then I end up like doing more damage than good because then I don't make enough moves because everything is shiny to me. Everything looks good. So this year I'm being overly aggressive. I think I dropped Candelario in a 12. Like I don't care. I'm literally not looking at rosters. I'm going week by week and just adding who's hot and dropping who's not. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. So that's Candelario. So that's where I'm at right now.
12s are crazy. That is for sure. But we're going to wrap it up there, Mr. Kurland. I got to get running. What are your final thoughts on the week? It's been a pleasure having you back on the airwaves.
I talked enough to make up for the last 3 weeks not being on or so. But no, nothing, man. Just grinding it out. We're just now getting into the middle of the season.
Middle of the season, man.
Got a long way to go. This is the fun. This is where the fun begins, and this is where you can start catching up to those that are getting into football and the teams are giving up. I think this is why I'm like not completely out of it yet, man.
Well, that's why I make my jokes when I tweet or on the shows about OC FAABs, like the non-runner-up bids. I even said it when we started recapping them all. Just the lack of overall bids on certain players. Like they're obviously it took like 4 weeks for David Hamilton to basically be 100% rostered. Like if David Hamilton does this in the middle of April, he's gone like that week. So absolutely. It just goes to show you how things are like. That's why I said always check your stuff. Like because people are taking off. Mock draft city's taking off in the NFL right now. It's only going to get better. It depends on how you look at it. Better for us, worse for others is how I see it. So Check it all out. Make sure you check out Mike on Twitter at Mike_Kurland at MLBplayingtime.com as well. I'm on Twitter at BDintric. And as always, thanks for listening, everybody. This was Bench with Bubba, episode 675. Catch you all next time.